On a hot summer afternoon, somewhere in suburban America, a child stands behind a small wooden table. A handwritten sign reads, "Fresh lemonade -50. Ice cubes clink against the glass. The sun is bright, cars pass slowly." It feels simple, innocent, almost timeless. But what if this scene is not simply American? What if this drink, this mixture of water, lemon, and sugar, carries within it a journey that began more than 1,000 years ago? To understand lemonade, we must leave the suburbs behind. We must travel across continents, across empires, across trade routes that reshaped the world. Lemons did not begin in America. They did not begin in Europe. In fact, the lemon itself likely originated in regions of South Asia, particularly northeastern India and surrounding areas, where early citrus varieties were cultivated thousands of years ago. From there, citrus fruit slowly traveled westward. This movement did not happen by accident. It happened because of trade. Between the 7th and 12th centuries, the Islamic world became one of the most powerful commercial networks on earth. Merchants connected India, the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Europe. Along these routes moved spices, silk, knowledge, and plants. Among those plants were citrus fruits. By the 10th century, lemons were being cultivated widely in the Mediterranean basin. Agricultural manuals from the Islamic Golden Age describe citrus varieties in detail. These were not rare curiosities, they were valued crops. And in the bustling markets of Cairo, one of the most important commercial centers of the medieval world, vendors sold a drink made from lemon juice mixed with sugar. This sweetened lemon beverage was known in some sources as katamizit. It was not a child's summer treat. It was a product of global commerce. Sugar itself had traveled long distances, originally cultivated in South and Southeast Asia. Sugar can spread westward through Persian and Arab agricultural expansion. By the medieval period, sugar production was established in parts of the Middle East and North Africa. Sweetness was not cheap. It was precious. So when someone in medieval Cairo drank a chilled lemon and sugar mixture, they were tasting more than refreshment. They were tasting the outcome of international trade networks. Lemonade, in its early form, was proof that empires could move ingredients across continents. Now imagine the scene. A crowded marketplace. Traders shouting prices. The scent of spices in the air. Cloth merchants displaying silk, metal workers hammering tools, and among them, a vendor pouring pale yellow liquid into clay cups. In a hot climate, this drink would have been deeply refreshing, acidic, sweet, cooling. It met a human need that is universal, relief from heat. But here is the key insight. Lemonade was not invented in isolation. It was assembled by geography, by economics, by agricultural innovation, water, lemon, sugar. Each component came from a different story, and the combination would not remain in Cairo forever, because trade never stands still. From North Africa, citrus cultivation continued expanding westward into Sicily and the Iberian Peninsula. Muslim agriculturalists introduced advanced irrigation systems, allowing lemons and other citrus fruits to thrive in Mediterranean climates. This was not random farming. It was systematic agricultural transfer. As territories shifted between Islamic and Christian rule, knowledge did not disappear. Crops remained, techniques survived, lemons became rooted in southern Europe. By the late medieval period, citrus fruits were no longer exotic imports in Mediterranean regions. They were cultivated locally. though still considered valuable. But something crucial changed in Europe between the 16th and 17th centuries. Urbanization increased. Cities grew denser. Markets became more structured. Street vendors multiplied. And in 17th century Paris, a new version of lemon drink began to appear publicly. In 1676, a guild known as the Compagnie des Limonadiers was officially established. These were licensed vendors authorized to sell lemonade on the streets of Paris. They carried containers on their backs and poured the drink into cups for passing customers. This detail matters. Lemonade was no longer confined to regional markets of the Middle East. It had entered European urban life, commercially regulated, publicly visible, culturally integrated. However, the drink was still not universal. Sugar remained relatively expensive. Lemonade was accessible, but not yet ordinary. Meanwhile, in London, similar beverages began appearing. Imported lemons from Mediterranean suppliers supported demand. Trade networks connected European ports. Citrus became part of maritime supply chains. And here is an overlooked factor. Sailors valued citrus because it helped prevent scurvy, a disease caused by vitamin C deficiency. Though the science was not fully understood at first, experience showed that citrus consumption reduced illness during long sea voyages. So lemons were not only refreshing, they were strategic. By the 18th century, global trade had intensified dramatically. European colonial expansion reshaped agricultural production. Sugar plantations in the Caribbean increased output, often through brutal systems of enslaved labor. This expansion lowered sugar prices in Europe and North America, and that shift changed everything. When sugar becomes cheaper, sweetness spreads. Now lemonade could move from semi-luxury refreshment to broader consumption. It is important to pause here and challenge a common assumption. Many people associate lemonade primarily with American childhood, but by the time lemons and sugar reached North America in meaningful quantities, the drink had already traveled for centuries. It had crossed empires, religions, languages. It was already global. By the time lemonade reached the American colonies, it was not a new invention. It was an import, culturally and economically. But America would reshape it in a way that no previous civilization had. Because in America, lemonade would stop being a merchant's product. It would become a symbol. But America would reshape it in a way that no previous civilization had. Because in America, lemonade would stop being a merchant's product. It would become a symbol. When lemonade crossed the Atlantic and entered colonial America, it arrived quietly. There was no grand announcement, no declaration of invention. It came the same way many cultural elements arrive, carried inside trade ships, recipe books, and habit. In the 18th century, lemons were still imported goods. They traveled from Mediterranean orchards to European ports, then across the ocean to American cities such as Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. Sugar, increasingly produced in Caribbean plantations, flowed through the same trade networks. The Atlantic economy connected everything. At first, lemonade in America was not the drink of children. It appeared in taverns, social gatherings, and urban markets. It was refreshing, fashionable, and associated with hospitality. Cookbooks from the late 1700s and early 1800s included recipes for lemonade that closely resembled the European style: lemon juice, water, and sugar, sometimes carbonated in later adaptations. But the 19th century changed the social meaning of many products, including lemonade. Industrialization reshaped American cities. Ice harvesting and later mechanical refrigeration made cold drinks more accessible. Sugar became cheaper and more widely available. Transportation improved. Ingredients could move faster and farther. And something subtle began to happen. Lemonade moved from taverns to sidewalks. Street vendors began selling chilled drinks during hot summers. Public fairs and community gatherings featured refreshment stands. What was once connected to trade elites became connected to everyday people. Then, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a uniquely American transformation occurred. Children began selling lemonade. In America, lemonade became symbolic. It represented optimism, the idea that something sour could become sweet. This symbolism strengthened in the early 20th century when the phrase "when life gives you lemons, make lemonade" gained popularity, often associated with writer Elbert Hubbard. The phrase reframed adversity as opportunity. Notice the transformation across 1,000 years. In medieval Cairo, lemonade symbolized global trade and agricultural sophistication. In early modern Europe, it symbolized regulated urban commerce. In colonial and industrial America, it symbolized accessibility, and eventually, it symbolized resilience. Few drinks carry such layered meaning. Water, lemon, sugar, three simple components. Yet each carries historical weight. Water, essential, universal. Lemon, carried across continents through empire and trade. Sugar, tied to vast economic systems that reshaped the modern world. Lemonade is not just refreshing. It is a product of globalization before the word globalization existed. It is evidence that ideas and ingredients travel farther than borders. And perhaps that is why the image of a sweating glass on a hot summer day feels timeless. Because behind that glass stands 1,000 years of movement, of ships crossing seas, of merchants negotiating prices, of farmers cultivating orchards, of children learning to sell their first product. The next time someone pours lemonade over ice, they are unknowingly participating in a story that began centuries ago in the markets of Cairo and traveled through the streets of London before reaching the front lawns of America. A simple drink, a global journey, a 1,000-year-old summer tradition.